Hi, I'm Ira Wallace with Southern Exposure Seed Exchange here at Acorn Community Farm, and I'm for the soil because the soil is the basis of our agriculture. Soil grows our plants, and I love good soil.
Here we go with another episode of For the Soil, a conversation. I'm your host, Jeff Ishii. My co-host, Eric Benfelt, and Mary Sketch Bryant will be joining us in just a couple of moments here. But first, I wanted to remind everyone that we've got a special holiday coming up in June 23rd to be precise. It is National Soil Health Day. That's right, on June 23rd, National Soil Health Day, and we will have a special episode on that day. So keep that in mind, June 23rd, National Soil Health Day. Also, please remember to subscribe and like this podcast whenever you hear it. It is available on all of the major podcast platforms. Now to this week's episode. Welcome, everyone, to For the Soil, a conversation. I'm your host, Jeff Ishii, with my co-host, Mary Sketch Bryant, with the Virginia Soil Health Coalition, and Eric Benfelt, with the Virginia Cooperative Extension Community Viability Program. We want to welcome everyone to the program now, and we have a very special guest. And Eric, if you would introduce that guest.
Yes, Jeff and Mary, we're very pleased to have Lauren Hines-Acosta with us. Lauren's a journalist with the Chesapeake Bay Journal, and she's based in Richmond, Virginia, and has a degree from University of Missouri in journalism and astronomy. And part of our effort is expanding people's knowledge of soil health and the four soil health principles. So we're pleased to have a journalist and an astronomist with us. Lauren, if you'd want to let our listeners know a little bit more about yourself and
Well, thanks for the invite. I've been working for the Chesapeake Bay Journal the last 2 years. I'm really a science writer first, but I'm happy to write about the environment. So, yeah.
And Lauren, the Bay Journal covers a lot of topics, all somehow tying back to the Bay, but I've, loved over my years of reading it how you get social stories, cultural stories, environmental, and all kind of weaving together. Do you go wherever you are needed? Do you have a beat within the Chesapeake Bay Journal? What do you work on and what's your favorite thing to work on?
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I basically cover the Virginia portion of the Chesapeake watershed. So that's from, the coast to just about Roanoke. That's kind of where it cuts off. Um, and yeah, I'll go up to Fairfax County down to Hampton Roads, and I'm trying to be better about getting out to Western Virginia. But out of all the stuff I cover, I mean, it's a big range. I'm at the Capitol or the State House a ton right now. But I'm a big science girly. So whenever like VIMS puts out a new study, I'm super excited to read the scientific paper and get into like, I don't know, talking like cells and parasites and whatever, like with the scientists. So yeah, I always like looking at the latest research on just about anything. But our readers really love critters, so we dive into that a lot.
Lauren, it's a real pleasure to have you on the podcast today, and especially as a reporter. I've been a career reporter and journalist myself, so it's great to have a fellow journalist on the podcast with us and talk about issues concerning the environment and soil health. And I was reviewing some of your recent articles, and I want to mention to our listeners that you can read these articles at bayjournal.com. That's bayjournal.com. And one of your most recent articles, Lauren, was how to reduce forever chemicals in your drinking water.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of stimulated a question, some curiosity on my part. Forever chemicals, number one, what are they, and are they in the soil?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really big issue. So forever chemicals are kind of a class of chemicals that they have this unique carbon fluoride bond or fluorine bond, excuse me, that's really strong. It takes extreme temperatures to break down, so they stick around in the environment for a long time. And so some compounds, not all of them, they do range depending on how many bonds they have, but some compounds do have some health issues, specifically PFOA and PFOS as possibly carcinogenic. So some concern there. And when it comes to the soil, um, the main way we're seeing that is in biosolids, which is sanitized sewage sludge that gets applied on farms as a cheaper manure fertilizer option. But they have been known to be contaminated with PFAS and other chemicals. So that's another issue.
Lauren, this is taking a step back to maybe
Yeah.
going back to your interest in astronomy, and we're also trying to encourage a sense of wonder with people with the soil. And often you'll read that a teaspoon of soil will have billions of microbes, bacteria, and such. What really sparked your sense of wonder in physics and astronomy and led you to this career?
Yeah, I really like that you talked about the microbes. So when I used to re work at a research center, um, there was a researcher kind of looking at the very, small world of cells. And I feel like it mirrors the expanse of space a lot because you look up and it's like just billions and billions of stars and galaxies, and there's just as many of those types of well, I guess units when we're looking at the microbes of soil. So it's like this whole other world that we're desperately trying to learn about and get access to. And so I just love space and particularly physics because it asks the big questions of how did we get here? How did the universe start? And I don't know, how do we have the same chemical makeup as things that takes millions of years just for the light of it to reach us? So yeah, I'm just absolutely in love with these worlds um, that we're so close to yet can't quite access.
I love that. And I see so many parallels between that astronomy and space side and the underground world, that there is still so much that we are learning about. And I think that is so many folks' interest in it is it's almost this humbling space
Yeah.
with science. So that's really neat. And kind of building off of that, as a journalist, you're the end of the day trying to reach an audience and the public. And, we have found, or I've found working with a lot of farmers and producers, that soil health is a connection to the Chesapeake Bay that
Mm.
really ties in because you have the farm viability components. What are you seeing about the bay that is really grabbing the public's interest?
Let's see. Well, a lot of our readers grow up near the water. And I moved here to Virginia about 2 years ago for the job. And I realized talking to people and working at this publication that people have a strong personal connection to the water. And yeah, and so there's that recreational personal aspect. Um, and then some people are learning just how much the Chesapeake Bay connects people since the watershed goes all the way out to southern New York, right? And a bit of West Virginia. So I hope that answers your question.
We're talking today with Lauren Hines-Acosta. She is a journalist with the Bay Journal Media, which I might also say that the Bay Journal Media is a 501c3 nonprofit news organization, a little bit different from the general media that most people are familiar with. And you can read a lot of her articles online at bayjournal.com. That's bayjournal.com. It's amazing to me, Lauren, the diversity of environmental topics that you cover. You've covered the menhaden fishing industry. You've covered the Chesapeake Bay watershed. You've covered forestry conservation. Which has been your favorite story over the last year or so?
Oh, yeah. My favorite story is actually about fusion energy. So Chesterfield County, directly south of Richmond, won a bid, and there's this big, I think it's called Commonwealth Fusion Systems. A big fusion plant is coming into the county. Um, and for those who don't know, fusion is basically, well, fusing. Oh gosh, I should have done some research or read up on my story, but it's basically the opposite of nuclear fission. So instead of breaking apart molecules or atoms, you're fusing them together. And so it takes a lot of energy to do so because you have to overcome um, that force that makes, differently charged magnets. Like you squeeze them together and they won't go, right? So positive and negatively charged, um, like protons and neutrons, like you're trying to squeeze them together. Neutrons are neutrally charged. Anyway, you put me on the spot here, but basically it's fusing them together. That's the key aspect, and you have to have a ton of energy to do that. Um, and it has been proven at the Lawrence National Lab that it is possible to do this, but on a commercial scale to provide energy at a very low, almost non-existent carbon cost um, would be life-changing for a lot of people. So I'm really excited about that project down south. So that was a really fun story to write about. So yeah.
And Lauren, as a journalist, you were just talking about a sort of complex issue with nuclear fusion and, soil health. Sometimes it can seem fairly nerdy as well, or soil
Yeah.
science. As a journalist, how do you find the balance in conveying necessary information and basic concepts as well as readability?
Yeah, that's a great question. So some of the key things with science communication is you gotta make sure you explain jargon. Um, and if you're explaining a process, one thing I like to do in my writing is to take it step by step and even carry over the word. So like dog jumps over the fence and then I don't know, the fence is tall or something like that. It's supposed to continue the thought. Um, and just getting like answering people's questions as they arise in your writing, so then they keep reading. So I always have my Pennsylvania reader in my mind because it's the farthest person from me. So they have to still care. They have to still be engaged. So that's what guides me.
Okay, Lauren, it's tied to soil health because water quality benefits soil health and yeah. So, but I heard Jeff said that you did a story on menhaden. I've been hearing a lot about menhaden recently. What's the deal with them in the Bay? And I know there's some stuff going through Virginia right now about menhaden.
Yeah, okay. Menhaden gets spicy. So menhaden is this fatty fish in the Chesapeake Bay and along the East Coast. And they're a food source for other wildlife like osprey and striped bass, even though those species eat other things, not just menhaden. Maryland crabbers use them for bait. And then the reduction fishery in Reedville uses them to create fish meal, which goes into cat food and dog food and all that. Um, so there's a lot of people and animals that have stake in this fish. And there's a lot of debate as to what is the state of the population of menhaden in the bay itself, which is called localized depletion, and that's kind of debated if that's really a thing or not. But so there's been a study out there pushing to get these answers on menhaden, but it keeps getting delayed, although now we're seeing federal funding for that study. And there's been a lot of efforts to pause the reduction fishery or get more money for menhaden research in the state house here, but a lot of that has failed. So, or like died on the table. So yeah.
Our guest in this segment has been Lauren Hines-Acosta. She is with the Bay Journal Media, which is a 501c3 nonprofit news organization. And we've been talking about some of the articles that you have written concerning the environment in our region. All of those articles are available to read online at bayjournal.com. That's bayjournal.com. About a minute or so left, Lauren. Any other resources that you would refer our listeners to who are really interested in environmental issues, particularly as they relate to soil health, maybe?
Yes, well, let's see. On our website at bayjournal.com, my colleague Carl Blankenship, which a lot of our listeners might know, he has just completed a series on agriculture and the Bay. And so if you really want to nerd out about ag and soil health, I'm sure there's a wealth of information there, so they can read up on that.
And his name is Carl
Blankenship.
Blankenship. Okay, so you can go to bayjournal.com and search for Carl Blankenship. That will certainly be worthy of a reading. And we want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. I know you're a very busy person, but thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Lauren Hines-Acosta with the Bay Journal Media, once again at bayjournal.com, bayjournal.com. Mary and Eric, we'll catch you in the next one.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you,
Jeff
Jeff.
and Lauren.
For the Soil, a Conversation is made possible with funding support from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and the Agua Fund. Other partners include the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, Virginia Cooperative Extension, Virginia State University, Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation, and partners of the Virginia Soil Health Coalition. Views expressed on this podcast are those of each individual guest. To download a copy of this or any other episode, visit the website forthesoil.org, and if you have a specific question about soil health, call your local extension office, your local USDA service center, or a Soil and Water Conservation District office. Music used during today's program was provided courtesy of the Flip Charts, all rights reserved. For the Soil, a Conversation is produced by On the Farm Radio in collaboration with Virginia Tech. I'm your host, Jeff Ishii.